Om Purnamadah Purnamidam Purnat Purnamudachyate Purnasya Purnamadaya Purnamevavashishyate. Om Shanti Shanti Shantihi. Atma vai are shrotavyah mantavyah nididhyasitavyah. In other words, Shravanam, Mananam, Nididhyasanam. Just a different. Shrotavyah must be listened to, must be thought about, enquired into. Mantavyah, Nididhyasitavyah must be contemplated upon. And then if we just say Shravanam, listening, Mananam, meditating, Nididhyasanam, contemplating, contemplation. So it's the same root, just a different construction. Same word. And so the doubt removal, it does not produce new knowledge, as we saw earlier. What does it do? It makes that knowledge which one has already gained or is in the process of gaining through a program of Shravanam sink in deeper. It's almost like there is something stopping that knowledge, that to flow fully, like like there is some kind of sometimes in the blood flow there is a constriction. And so what does this knowledge do? What does the removal of doubts do? It allows that knowledge to flow. Because what is the use of a knowledge that is riddled with doubts, with vagueness, with error? Neither can one enjoy it for oneself, nor can one share it effectively with others. Because if people ask you, what are you spending all your time, night and day, sitting in front of a screen, and you would like to be able to say what you are doing. But if that knowledge you are unable to enjoy yourself because it is laced with all kinds of doubt, etc. So we need some kind of a strategy to rid this knowledge that one is in the process of gaining, to free it of all doubts, errors, vagueness. And it's not some kind of an invasive surgery. So many times if there's a block in the artery, you can put a little stent. You can think of Mananam as a stent, or some kind of a ballooning procedure where the debris is cleared so that the blood can flow. Here also, the debris of doubt and the resultant despair, etc., is removed because the doubts are addressed. This is why the sampradaya, which is another name for parampara, the lineage is very important. The lineage is of great importance because this knowledge is been, we have a very rich body of hermeneutics. This knowledge has been tried, tested, thought about, stretched, and the knowledge is very good in doing all the asanas, headstand, handstand, everything this knowledge can do. It is very flexible, it has been thought about. There is a rich scholarly tradition of how to interpret this particular word, why to interpret it like this in this particular context. Plus, the doubt removal takes place when we study for people who are who are deeply interested in immersing in this knowledge. The doubt removal takes place through the study of what we call Bhashya, Adi Shankara's Bhashya. So many Bhashyas are there. Adi Shankara's Bhashya as a case in point. And then what happens? Bhashya means commentary. When you study the commentary, the 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 commentator Adi Shankara himself will raise the doubts, and until those doubts are raised, you don't even know that those doubts were there. You don't even know that those doubts are there. When that doubt is raised, why can't it be this way? Why can't we think of it like this? Why should it be this way? Then you say, oh, that's an interesting doubt. This is true. How come it can't be this way? And because those doubts are all very much buried together, they are what are called latent. And the latent doubts are purposely brought out like ghouls during Halloween, and then they have a chance to air themselves out and they are addressed. And this is extremely important, to rid the knowledge, to make it free of all these doubts. Otherwise, it is an impaired knowledge. It's a knowledge on crutches. It's a knowledge on a ventilator. Who wants that kind of knowledge? Nobody. And so this is the power of doubt removal through Mananam, through the study of Bhashya, through through deeper immersion, through thinking about it yourself. Because after listening to some of these talks, you know the kind of thinking that you can do to help yourself. Plus, you can also ask the teachers, etc., etc. That is all, that's all included in doubt removal, aka Mananam. Then after that, what? Nididhyasanam. Didhyasu, the one who is desirous of contemplation. From dhyai to contemplate, to meditate. Dhyai, and then didhyasa, didhyasu, and then nididhyasanam is made into a noun. A desire to be with oneself. It's a kind of a desiderative construction, but still it is used as a noun. It is, Nididhyasana is not just the desire to contemplate, it is also contemplation itself. Contemplation is a big word, and so we'll spend some time contemplating on this word, contemplation. What is this contemplation? Huge word. And how is it different from meditation? Very important. In meditation has a definition. Saguna Brahma Vishaye Manasa Vyaparaha Dhyanam. So the definition of Dhyanam is the Saguna Brahma Vishaye is the Manasa Vyaparaha, mental activity. Manasa Vyaparaha. So if you just take this as meditation, so Manasa Vyaparaha Dhyanam, then you thinking about your retirement will also constitute as meditation, because it's a mental activity. Not every mental activity constitutes as meditation, okay? Because you could be worrying about something, about your future, or you could be cursing somebody, why did they do this to me? That is all not meditation. So the Manasa Vyapara, the mental activity, is qualified by Saguna Brahma Vishaye. So a Manasa Vyapara, a mental activity that is centered on what is called Sagunam Brahma. Brahman with attributes. What kind of attributes? Bhagavan. Attributes in the sense as though attributes. That consciousness, that self-evident I, which is invoked from the standpoint of the cause of the universe, from which everything has as it were come, by which everything is as though being sustained, into which everything as though resolves. This is Sagunam Brahma. So many forms of Bhagavan, Devatas we have. That is called Sagunam Brahma. So Saguna Brahma Vishaye, So the mental activity, the topic for which is Sagunam Brahma, Ishvara, Bhagavan, in any manner that you want to invoke. So this is called Dhyanam. We have to understand, because this is, what should I say, Nididhyasanam is Dhyanam 2.0. Okay, so that's why first we have to start with meditation and then go to Nididhyasanam, contemplation. So then, what do I do in meditation? Should I imagine what the deity looks like? Like if I am meditating upon Lord Krishna, should I visualize the deity and him holding the flute and then the peacock feather and all these things, having a smile on the face? The short answer is no, that is not necessary. So the connection between the individual jiva and Ishvara is in the form of a mantra, usually received through the lineage, through the teachers. It is a personal mantra for, this is what is called japa. And even the word japa, that has been variously analyzed. And then Ja stands for Janma Nashaka, that which puts an end to births. And what is the reason for having so many births? Papa. So the Pa stands for Papa Nashaka, that which destroys birth and the cause of birth, which is wrong actions and the results of all kinds of wrong actions. Papa. So if I'm not visualizing the deity, when I'm sitting, what am I doing? I'm connecting to the Bhagavan in the form of a mantra. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namah Shivaya. These are all mantras. Panchakshari, all these things. Om Dum Durgayai Namaha. These are all mantras. And so you just repeat the mantra. You train the mind to think of the mantra. Usually there is some kind of a, random thinking going on. Even though we say without rhyme or reason, thoughts are coming, there is a reason. And if there is no reason, there is definitely a rhyme. As my teacher used to say, if you think of Honda, the next thought will be Bonda, a fried fritter. Okay, so so there is a rhyme even if there is no reason. So the mind is like a frog. It leaps from one thing to another all the time, jumps, 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 jumps. And what do? You go along with it, and that's the normal that's the normal day in the jiva's life. Be tyrannized by the thought patterns, and you say, oh no, here I go, but then you go you do, and then what? Very difficult to extricate. Because these thoughts somehow take you to that place which needs repair, to that place which needs inquiry, to that place which needs some attention, i.e., the pain centered on the eye. That's why all thoughts appear to take you to sorrow, to distress, to anxiety. And then you ask yourself the question, how come I am here? This is why. And so the meditation tries to make a break with this state of affairs. How? You give the mind a thought to think deliberately. Tell the mind, you are not in charge, you are not going to take me down this roller coaster of up and downs and then finally end somewhere in sorrow, fear, anxiety, depression, loneliness. I am not going to do this now. In fact, I am the boss. You are going to do what I say, oh mind. Because, we hear this in the Upanishad itself. Manaha eva manushyanam karanam bandha mokshayoho. The mind is the cause of bandha, bondage, and the mind is also the cause of liberation, moksha. Depending upon how you use it, it can either aid in tying you up further in the bondage, or it can help you to get out of the bondage, depending on how you use it. And understanding this, the Viveki, the Dhira, the intelligent person, what should the intelligent person do? First tell the mind, up till now maybe you thought you were the boss, but no, you are fired. Oh, but can I please come back? Yes, you can come through the back door as domestic help. Why? You can help me. You can just help, be a receptacle for this knowledge. Okay, okay, okay. What do I do? Wash the dishes, sweep the yard, and clean off raga dveshas, sweep the antahkarana, sweep the inner infrastructure. This is what your job is now. And so, okay, what should I do first? You just think the thoughts that I tell you to think, no independent thoughts on your own. Okay, what is my first thought? Om Namah Shivaya. Oh, that's easy enough. And the mind obliges and says, okay, Om Namah Shivaya. What is the second thought? Om Namah Shivaya. Oh, little bit of a, sinking feeling, but all right. Om Namah Shivaya. That's easy enough. What's the third thought? Om Namah Shivaya. What? Om Namah Shivaya. What's the fifth thought? Om Namah Shivaya. Oh, and the mind says, well, I can stage a kind of a secret rebellion. Why? Because they are just asking me to think the thoughts. And Om Namah Shivaya 1, to Om Namah Shivaya 2, to Om Namah Shivaya 3, to Om Namah Shivaya 4, and henceforth. But little do they know that there is space between one Om Namah Shivaya and another Om Namah Shivaya. Victory is mine. That is my place to have my own thoughts. And then so usually the Om Namah Shivaya goes on very well. Om Namah Shivaya, very obediently, the mind lets you chant. Between the first Om Namah Shivaya or the second Om Namah Shivaya or the 107th Om Namah Shivaya and the 108th Om Namah Shivaya, that space is where the distractions take place. First thought, and before you know it, somehow one is already derailed. First thought, Om Namah Shivaya. Second thought, Om Namah Shivaya. Third thought, very obedient. Om Namah Shivaya, very obedient sadhaka here. Fourth thought, Om Namah Shivaya. Fifth thought, Om Namah Shivaya. No. Is anything happening? Am I getting peace of mind? Am I getting closer to the truth of myself? Is the mind calmer? Already that's a distraction. So dhyanam is to bring back the mind. If the mind doesn't go anywhere, that is not dhyanam. Dhyanam means there will be distraction and the mind is repeatedly, gently, without self-blame, brought back and made to dwell upon the mantra. The idea is, if you are able to do this for half an hour, 48 minutes is the recommended time. 48 minutes is a mandala, anything with 48 hours, 48 minutes. Then you get what is called, if you do this, you get mantra siddhi, the ability to sit and, battle the mind and emerge victorious. Not give up the whole enterprise. So the idea is, if you are able to sit for 15 minutes, 10 minutes, 5 minutes, whatever it is, deliberately, then with practice, then the whole life is an open eye meditation. You are able to be in meditation all the time. All you have to remind yourself is to say, okay, it's not Om Namah Shivaya, but right now I am doing laundry. Laundry is Shiva right now, and I am not going to be distracted. And I am going to do this. So the mind is with you. You are not just being ransacked and hijacked by the mind all the time. This is dhyanam. Nididhyasanam is not the repetition of a mantra per se. Dhyanam is deliberate. This is another difference. Dhyanam is deliberate. Nididhyasanam happens when the mind is ready. When the person, I should say, is ready. But what is this Nididhyasanam? Nididhyasanam is akin to chewing the cud, which cattle do. The cow, when it is let out into the pasture, it has a, what is that, it has an eagerness, and it has no sense of time. It's not wearing a watch or carrying a cell phone to be able to say, okay, and to be have observed, okay, all of my life the farmer is letting me out into the pasture for the whole day and then bringing me back in the evening. It has no sense of time. And it is hungry, it hasn't eaten. Unlike human beings, they who eat all the time. Cows have specific times when they eat. And so it's been on this intermittent fast, and then it goes. As soon as it's let out into the pasture, it goes and nibbles on the grass and eats and eats and eats and eats and eats and eats and eats. Kind of swallows it. And then what? It's full. It's totally full. But there is nothing more to do. And the farmer is not calling it back. In India, all the cows have names, Lakshmi, most of them are called Lakshmi because abundance. Lakshmi, come home. Nobody is, asking it to come home. So what is the cow going to do? It looks and find a nice shady tree. And unlike the human being, the cow has 4 chambers in the stomach. So all the things that are the grasses that are there hurriedly swallowed, it brings it back and chews it, kind of like extracting wheat grass juice, and then slowly swallows it and savors the taste. So why are you telling the story of the cow? Because you are the cow, eager for, so I am the cow. Then what is the grass? The various Upanishads are the grasses. You are the eager sadhaka, the one who after a after a parched spell, like the photos you see of drought, cracked, parched earth, nothing grows, not even a blade of grass. You have come from that kind of a samsaric life, where there is no shade, where there is nothing to sustain, where everything is dry, deserted, and completely without nissara, without any kind of happiness. And then suddenly being let out into the pasture of the Upanishads. Oh look, Kathopanishad, nibble, nibble, nibble. Oh look, Kenopanishad. Oh look, one more talk on some other Upanishad, Shvetashvatara Upanishad, Taittiriya Upanishad. We have 10 Upanishads that are traditionally taught. And to remember them we have a rhyme. Ishakena Katha Prashna, Mundaka Tittirihi, Aitareyancha Chandhogyam, Brhadaranyaka Tatha. So this is how you remember all 10 of them. And so they are all various grasses. And the stories in the Upanishads are little daisies that are growing, which make the whole, salad, the Upanishad salad, even more delightful. All the stories, all the things, wonderful. And so the eager brahmachari, the student of knowledge, samples the various grasses because of the hunger from so many lives leading a parched life. Nothing sustainable. Nothing to sustain. Somehow the life still gets sustained. Life after life, but without any, without that which really sustains the jiva is not there. Finally finding it and free to eat as much as one wants, as much as one have, to one's fill. Just like the cow goes here, goes there, eats everything. The sadhaka savors the Upanishads. And also other secondary works can be included in the grasses. Advaita Makaranda, all these things, Yoga Sutras, Bhagavad Gita, everything is there. It's a wonderful salad of Shabda Pramana, a word salad of the means of knowledge. One partakes of it. And then what? Nididhyasanam is recalling the words of the Upanishads, whose meaning you already know, and slowly and nicely reveling in it time after time after time. That is Nididhyasanam. So, we'll see some examples in a little while, but before, let's understand why this is necessary. This Nididhyasanam may not be necessary, but this is what is advised, because what else to do for the rest of the life? After you gain this knowledge, first of all, there is no desire to achieve anything. Atmanam ched vijaniyat, the same Brhadaranyaka Upanishad says elsewhere. Ayamasmi iti purushah kimartham kasya kamaya shariram anusanjvaret. If one knows the Atma, when one knows the Self, that I am all this, when one knows without a shade of doubt, error, vagueness, when one knows, having gained the knowledge from the pramana of the Upanishads handled by the teacher, when one has certain knowledge, then kimartham, for what purpose, kasya kamaya, to fulfill what desire, shariram anusanjvaret, will the person get into a feverish, will the person initiate a feverish set of activities, frenetic? No reason. The person of knowledge is calm because the only desire, the universal desire of all human beings to be free of being a wanting person, a lacking person, is already achieved. Underneath the desires to be famous, underneath the desire to matter, underneath the desire to be loved, underneath the desire to be heard, underneath the desire to be accomplished, underneath the desire to even be the biggest and the best Swami ever, that also could be a desire with a big following. Underneath all that desire is the desire to be whole. That's all it is. And that wholeness is conveyed through Sravanam. And it is ascertained further through Mananam. And then, for such a person, there is nothing left to do. And then, the advice is, Kalam nayet nirantaram. Just spend the life reveling in the glory of who you are. So this is not the time to ask the question. Raise hand, raise hand feature. Okay, in the Zoom Ashram has a raise hand feature. So you raise the hand and then say what? How long should I contemplate? This is the wrong question to ask. But why? Because contemplation is not an act, number one. And number two, it is something which is very pleasant and it's not a chore. It should not be a chore. If it is a chore, then you should, if somebody says you have to do this pranayama, okay, how long should I do pranayama? It's an action. You have to catch the nose, you have to breathe in certain ways, you have to do, puraka, rechaka, all these things, you have to do. You have to hold the breath at certain times and then breathe in. All these things are there. It is a mindful karma. Contemplation is not an action. It is not karma. It is you being yourself. Just like you don't ask the question, how long should I be myself? If you're asking that question, there is some pressure, there is some pain there. Nobody asks the question, how long should I be myself? Lifelong, all the time. You be yourself, because being oneself is effortless, being oneself is enjoyable as long as there are no conflicts and there are no two people. One who says something, the other one who does something else. All that problem, as long as it's not there, being oneself is totally, completely, and fully enchanting and enjoyable. So, the reveling in the glory means reveling in the Purnata, in the wholeness. That's why it's not an act, because it is oneself. It's not an act because you cannot say to somebody, please contemplate at 4 o'clock tomorrow. Why? Because for the same reason you cannot tell somebody, please love at 4 o'clock tomorrow. Just like love is not an action, contemplation is also not an action. It is basically, sitting with oneself, just because that is what one is moved to do. Nididhyasanam. This is what contemplation is. And so there is a little bit of a paradox here, just like there is a paradox with every aspect of Vedanta. Vedanta is full of paradoxes, and this one also is a paradox. What is the paradox? Until you are contemplative, you cannot contemplate. This is the catch, whatever it's called, 22. Catch 22. Until one is already contemplative, one cannot contemplate. So we cheat a little bit and we say, okay, let's try to deliberately, little bit, practice a little bit, tiny bit of contemplation in the hope that the desire to contemplate comes. That the desire to contemplate naturally comes, and then you have a taste of something and then you want more and more. And so the desire to contemplate is, as I said, oneself. What self? The happy, unbridled, uninhibited self. Limitlessly full, Purna, whole self. Who would not like to be with such a self? Everybody would want to be with such a self. The reason one is afraid of being one with oneself for any length of time is because the self that one encounters is riddled with sorrow, incompleteness, fears, tears. That is why one doesn't want to have anything to do with the self. But that's why Sravanam comes first. And with Sravanam, the one looks at the self completely differently. The self becomes a prized object of pursuit and possession. And when one realizes, when one understands that one is in the possession of this self that one wanted to be, there is Ananda. It's all delight. And then so, sitting with that Ananda, you don't ask the question, why or how long should I sit with Ananda? It's like asking yourself, it's like asking, the teacher said to me, please sit with your happiness. Then you don't say, how long should I be happy? Just like one doesn't ask that question because it is assumed, universally assumed, that happiness should be there forever. So basically, sitting with oneself, sitting with the truth of oneself is also a lifelong activity. The question is why? What is the purpose of Nididhyasana? What does it do for me? Does it produce the knowledge? No. Only Sravanam can make you understand. Then does it remove the doubts? No, because Mananam already did that. What does Nididhyasana do? Nididhyasana's purpose is to remove habitual orientations centered on the I. What are habitual orientations? I know I am Brahman, but I don't feel like it. I know I am Brahman, but I am not behaving like it. I'm not behaving. My behavior, and this is why people want, Vedanta in day-to-day life. Why? Because my behavior there is a chasm between my behavior in everyday life and what I know. There is a big gap. What I know to be true, without any doubts. I have no doubt anymore. Sravanam has done its job. Mananam, if it was needed, has also done its job. I have Shraddha. I have gained the knowledge. I know I am Brahman without a shadow of doubt. Yet, I have the worst difficulty, especially in familiar situations. If I am among strangers, it is a little better. But if I am in familiar situations, very difficult. Why? Because you are confronting a society of people who look at you a particular way and who keep, as it were, inviting you to look upon yourself in the same way that they invoke you. This is why, my friends, Yajnavalkya, the sage, wanted to leave, even though he knew, even though he understood completely, wanted to leave the marriage and go to a life of contemplation. Because even with an enlightened spouse, a wife like Maitreyi, you can see that he himself had engaged in certain taking for granted assumptions, that she will want the money, that she will not want the knowledge, that she will, stay there and be happy, and I can just go. He had himself. Those kinds of patriarchal assumptions he himself had, which he acknowledges. He is surprised at her eligibility for the teaching. And no matter how enlightened, unless both of them are, jnanis and having what is called jnana nishtha. Jnana nishtha means the unshakable seating of the knowledge in the heart. That is what Nididhyasanam bestows. Unless that jnana nishtha is there, there is the danger of taking each other for granted. There is the danger of getting angry. And there is why? Because one cannot be freed of expectations. So after the knowledge, if they had continued to live a conjugal life, a married life, you can only imagine what the conversations would have looked like. What do you mean you won't do my laundry? For 50 years you have done my laundry, Maitreyi. Well, I am Purna. Kimartham kasya kamaya shariram anusanjvaret. For what purpose will I do the laundry? So this is, you can only imagine the kind of conversations they might have. This is the reason why Yajnavalkya, wanting to sit more firmly in the knowledge, he knows. It's not that he doesn't know. But what does Nididhyasana do? It tears asunder, it cuts the cords of habitual orientations. Orientations of oneself as daughter, as son, as spouse, as mother, as father, as employer, as employee, as a karma yogi, as a sevak, as a brahmachari. All these orientations, it cuts. It's like, it's like the whole inside has been rewired as a result of this knowledge. There has been a tremendous inner revolution that has taken place. But generally, there is not much support to be able to live this life, to reap the fruits of this inner change, this revolutionary change. Which is why it is advised, go sit with yourself, be with yourself. Be away from familiar situations, home and etc., because the same expectations of other people bear you down. Why should they wear me down and bear me down? Because one is not strong enough to keep on resonating with this new identity. One slips back repeatedly to the old identities. One slips back to fulfill the expectation. Somebody says jump. All the life one has jumped, and you ask the question, yes, how high should I jump? This is the problem. And so what is, this is a very beautiful thing, this contemplation. It gives jnana nishtha. It is exactly like, if you rewire the room in your house, the front, the living room, and then you come in through the door. Before the rewiring of the electrical whatever, because maybe you remodeled, some reason you had to rewire. Before the electrical, rewiring, the switches all were on the left hand side. So it was a no-brainer. You would open the door and switch on the left hand side would be there, and the house would be bathed in light, the room would be bathed in light when you entered on a dark day. Now the switch has been put on the right hand side. So what will you do the first few times? You will grope. You will look for the switch. Where is it? It's not here. You may even panic because it is dark and you are convinced somebody has followed you home. Some unsavory person is looking at you or something like that, following you home. And it's pitch dark. And you just look for the switches. They are not there. Then you remember, electrical rewiring has taken place. And then you correctly locate the switch and the light goes on. Same thing in the antahkarana. The habitual orientations make it all dark even though it is full of light. Make it all dark, dreary, frightening, and then one feels like one has slipped, one has regressed. But thankfully, because of Nididhyasanam, not for too long. One saves oneself. One saves oneself from all calamities by plugging into the teachings. And so how is this Nididhyasanam done? You take one small thing, one small expression from the Upanishad. Asangaha aham. Asangoham, asangoham, asangoham punah punaha. Satchidananda swarupoham. Like this, you just take one or two things. Just sit and look deeply into the meaning. Asanga means uninvolved I am. The I is uninvolved in all activities, all strife, all conflict, all sorrow. And this is a wonderful thing to say to yourself when you're in the middle of a conflict. Asangoham, immediately you let go. In the middle of some kind of a depression, sudden sorrow comes, helplessness attacks. Asangoham. Bhagavan is in charge, or forget even that. You can just say, I am, the I, which I am, is uninvolved. Satchidananda swarupoham. I am that who is in the form of all, the source of all existence. That which is all pervasive, all knowledge, therefore Ananda. Anandoham. That itself is a contemplation. Anandoham. How can I be Ananda? I am completely sad right now. Anandoham. So like this, with baby steps and with a little bit of deliberate practice of Nididhyasana as an appetizer, one gains more and more strength, more and more traction to be able to do this more and more. And so this is a little taste of Sravanam, this has been a little taste of Mananam, and a little taste of Nididhyasanam. You can imagine all of these as little appetizers and on a tray which has been offered, and then may you keep on partaking of this, and may you plan your meals of Nididhyasanam, Shravanam, Mananam, Nididhyasanam all the time. May everyone be filled with love and kindness, and may everyone gain the knowledge of the self. Om Purnamadah Purnamidam Purnat Purnamudachyate Purnasya Purnamadaya Purnameva Vashishyate. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. Harihi Om Shri Gurubhyo Namaha. Harihi Om.